going on, ladies and gentlemen? Episode 31 of the Culture to Christ podcast. We're your hosts, Alex and Aaron. Thank you guys again for joining us. If you're new, please subscribe, leave a like. We want others like you to find this podcast. Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We got a great episode again for you guys. We're going to touch on a bit of what is God's love, what is the difference between that, and how culture sees love today. Aaron, what's good, man?
I'm good, man. Nice to have our routine back, on the ice twice a week. We're buzzing now.
Amen. It feels good. I can already feel like the energy, like naturally on the day. I have more, I kind of get up and go, and I feel way lighter. And lose and get rid of this dad bod I picked up over COVID, so it's been good. So I'm just very grateful that we can continue, and prayer that stuff stays lifted.
What'd you think of that pizza review we put up?
I had a fair review. There's a good pizza. I think, hopefully the next pizza review, more meat on it. I'm a meat guy, but it was good. It was a good review, and people are liking it, which I'm glad.
Yeah, before we get into the episode, we got to give a big shout out to one of our listeners, Jay Sanchez, who is also, he was one of the first people to buy my first t-shirt release for Some Notice.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so we got to give him a shout out because he just released his first podcast, right, called Anything Podcast.
Hey, congratulations.
And they just talk about, sports, music, fashion, but he reached out to me and was like, because he's been listening to our podcast and it's helped him a lot as well. So, it's something like that I see as, because when we started our podcast, we didn't have anything to go off of that was in our direction, right?
Yep.
So I'm happy that we inspired someone now, like Jay, who's a really good guy, to just pick up and go.
Honestly, yeah, no, straight up. So thank you so much, everyone, and Jay as well, because this has been a journey. So grateful we're at 31 episodes. Like when I think of like the first episode we did till now, and even the transformation and how you just grow being in the process. Hopefully you guys continue and just, like you said, start something, and you want to be able to inspire other people just to start something.
And I want people like Jay to let us know too, like what they're getting into, what they're starting, whether, clothing brand, podcast,
absolutely,
anything else. Like it's good to show that, that we're here to help others as well. Not just everything about us, right?
Exactly.
We want people to, feel that they can do things themselves, especially during a time right now. Like there's so much free time where, we all have to get going.
Yeah, honestly. And I think the messages that we get from people, like those private messages that we share in the chat, that's everything for me. Like people who go out of their day and send a personal message to your DMs and say like, hey, like I see what you guys are doing, or even fellow Christians, they believe and they know where the time are in, and they appreciate it, because it's not easy. You got to put out certain content, different conversations that is kind of in the cancel culture realm too, right? So we appreciate those always. Talking about clothing and stuff. Talk to me about your jacket right now.
So what do you think this is? Like what we were talking about earlier, and we're like, we'll save it for the podcast. But
yeah, that's
the beautiful thing about our podcast. We come from two different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So like, what would you think this is?
Pastel.
Yeah. So like, who do you think is the owner, or like?
He is. Is he a musician?
Yeah.
Okay. Musician. Not Canadian.
No.
Okay. He's probably, is he from France?
No. States.
The States? He likes pasta.
No?
No? Is pastel any...
Pastel has nothing to do with it.
It's colors. It's colors.
Yeah, exactly.
It's colors. I was thinking maybe it has to do with pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay. So he's a musician in the States.
Yeah.
And it's like he's into colors, and he's into like, is he into painting at all?
No.
So I got it totally off.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it? Go.
Just guess. Like, who would you think?
Like, you want me to guess the artist?
Yeah.
Is he a known? Like, do I?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not Kanye.
Yeah,
it is Kanye. No,
I'm surprised you didn't get that faster. I thought you would think like, yo, you already told me in the episode that he was your idol in the past.
Yeah, I was just like, man, that's
too obvious.
It's too obvious. So I was like, I'm trying to think of somebody else. Okay, it's Kanye.
So I'll tell you the brief history about this jacket.
Okay.
His first brand, this is before Adidas, before Yeezy brand, everything. This was his first brand that he was coming out with.
Oh, cool.
But it never he never released stuff from the brand because he went bankrupt. So this jacket is a sample, and that's why all the samples that he produced are worth crazy money now, because they've
Wow.
never seen the light of day. Like he's never got a chance to release them.
So how did you find? How did you were able to get your hands on one?
So basically, the people that like his type people that got access to the stuff, they started selling it like black market, or they started trading him. So there was a handful of pieces that were going around, but they were all came from like Kanye's camp. So
Wow.
like yeah, now that's why there's so much history behind it, because even today he's never talked about releasing any of the stuff from this brand. It was his first it was like his first baby.
Wow.
And like he wore this at I think it was MTV Awards, and when he performed in this jacket, that's when I saw it on TV, and I was like, yo,
Before
that
you got it,
jacket-
you're like, you have
this
to
is on
get it.
forums. This is what I was on, like when I was on ISS,
Oh,
like when there
geez.
was no Instagram, no social
Yeah.
media, and you just used to see pictures on Getty Images and like
Wow.
Hype Beast forums. So when I saw him performing it, I was like, that's crazy, and everyone wanted it, but it never came out. That's
Wow.
why it's
And
rare.
So how many are there, you think, in the world? Is there
For sure, I'd say less than 15, probably. Maybe
Oh.
maybe even less than 10, to be honest.
wow? So people listening and seeing this on YouTube right now are going, "Geez, that's some."
Yeah,
That's
like
a rare
the
find.
hype beast culture, like this jacket is like it's a grill.
And what is the inspiration behind pastel? Was he did he like painting? Was it like a pastel?
It
is
stands
colors.
for the past tells us everything. That's what the
Jeez.
meaning behind the brand was for him.
Okay.
And yeah, so like I'm sure you know the brand Off-White now.
Yeah.
So that started by Virgil, who was tight boys with Kanye,
Mhm.
but all of his boys worked on this brand with him.
Wow.
And now all of his boys, like they've went out to start like their own brands, and all of their brands are like the hottest. So
Really?
that's why there's a T-shirt that says Kanye and his all-star team, and it's all his disciples below him,
That's
because they
cool.
all came from his camp, right?
That's cool.
And they influenced culture. So
That's really cool. And talking about Kanye, he's getting a divorce now.
yeah, I think it's a good. We talked about it. We think it's a good thing, right?
Yes, I think it's necessary. It'll even connect in today's topic about kind of love and marriage and stuff like that, and kind of how that can be such a detriment, like such a draining, oppressing thing for somebody. And when people are going two different paths and want to change their life, you have to come to a crossroads, right? So, I mean, prayers to them, but
It had to be done.
he was calling it. Wasn't he talking about it too? Wasn't he like open about how that was, like, he tweeted about stuff that
Yeah,
things were.
when he was tweeting about it, he was talking about how he's like, Kim cheated on me with Meek. He was like, Kim was the one responsible for calling him crazy. Like I think like something happened where I think he accused her of like putting him on meds, or like the family of just
Okay.
like
I remember seeing
just
some
trying to-
videos.
Get out. Like he kept saying that everyone knows the movie
Who's
Get Out
on
is
him?
based on my life, right?
Holy cow.
So if the guy knows that, come on, he knows a lot more than we know from the
Yeah.
outside, right?
Yeah.
So like he probably is just at a place where you can only take like the evil spirit so much. Like
I
we know
know.
how the whole family, it's all about fame. It's all about what sells, the
Yeah.
clickbait. Like that's what put Kim on the map. Without the
Yeah.
sex tape, like
It's
I'm sorry to
not.
say, the family doesn't exist.
Yeah, and
You know?
even with the her father was a lawyer for
O.J. Simpson.
O.J. Simpson, so there's stuff around that. But yeah, honestly, I believe they're a danger to like women and men in our culture, like how they idolize and look up and watch the Kardashians. Man, this stuff is toxic because we see the influence they have on like women and how they want women to dress, and like buying everything to change how you look, to look like they all kind of look the same.
They all go to the
honestly.
same surgeon.
Okay, okay, that makes sense though. The same artist, so he's painting the same, right? But like I think it's very dangerous because we're not loving ourselves or how God made us. We're trying to change for the culture. So I think people can look on the outside, and us as faith, we kind of see Kanye, and we see it differently. Like when you're around all those people, everyone wants a hand in your thing. You don't know who to trust, man. When you get to that high level, like, and now it's your wife, who you made vows to, you made a covenant before God. You're saying divorce. That's a war now. Like it's not like you just get divorced and you go on your own ways. There's children involved. So
A lot of children too. If it was
Is-
like one or two, okay, maybe.
how many kids does he have with her?
Like what is like 5 or 6 now?
He has 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
lot now.
Okay, I thought he only had one.
No,
That's heavy.
There's a bunch.
That's heavy. So prayers to Kanye. Yeah, that's that's why for me too. I just always reflect and make sure that I'm patient when it comes to things, especially when you go into any kind of relationship. You have to be very careful now because people are carrying ulterior motives. They're carrying agendas. Sometimes they're carrying something that's going to lead you to a path you don't want to go to. Even with me now that I'm getting closer to God, like I can tell when like I get back into old habits, I start to feel that the emptiness and like, like if I don't like check myself, I'll like transgress. Like I can see my patterns now. So that's why when we talk about God's love and what it meant for me and how it transformed what I thought like, I didn't love before. Like before, what I thought of love was like whatever, TV told me, whatever I saw from my parents, whatever, culture was promoting. Music, it was a big influence for me, like listening to R&B, hip hop, and rap. Like that kind of stuff was just how I functioned. And for me and listeners, when it gets to the point where, instead of love is God, because everyone wants to be like, love is God. So if I have love, whatever that does, that's God. Where I want to get to a point where we can start talking about, God is love and what that means, for everyone's saving, right?
Well, I think that like when you say something like God is love, it can be interpreted in many ways. So, yeah, yes, God loves us all, right? He makes that clear. Whether you believe in him or not, he still loves us all,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think there needs to be more of an understanding of, what does that love that he provides, like how is that going to affect your life and the people around you?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there's a lot of people, even myself, like I never really truly felt like the extent of God's love on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I know there would be moments here and there where it's like, like you feel that you're very connected and like you're trying to, learn and use his love as an expression towards others, but I just felt that it wasn't on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's a lot of people listening to us right now who they want to feel that connection with God. They want to feel his love, his presence,
Mm-hmm.
but they just like they're constantly in a place where they don't see it, they don't feel enough of it, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't know how to have it more consistently.
Mm-hmm. What was that for you? What did you see change that made it? Because I hear that too, where people are like, I just don't feel it, like, so I can't do it because I don't feel it yet. And sometimes you have to understand the character of God. For me, it was working on at least trying to pray a little bit. Work on first praying, and then when I have to. For me, we're such in a confusing time, right? Like everything is so hard. Like who do I trust? That's a hard time too. Is people have a hard time trusting because they've been betrayed so many times, lied to. For me, is like reading the Word helped me because there was no voice. There's no other voice, and someone else telling me what to do, what to think. Another voice. Where if I'm reading, it's kind of me and whoever created me, kind of working through that. What was that kind of maybe not an epiphany, but place where you're like, oh, it's starting to make sense now, or it's starting to actually work. Where before it was maybe disconnected.
I think just from my choices of deciding what lifestyles to leave,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because when like we talked about before, how like the lifestyle I was living was very fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was coming fast, party, travel,
Mm-hmm.
just always being in the clubs,
Yeah.
And I think when I decided, I think the closest I felt to God was when I was at my lowest time during the gambling,
Mm-hmm.
Because the gambling time was when I kept praying and like I knew he was my only way out because like nothing else was working for me. And, like because I've always believed in God, I felt that I just needed a sliver of hope. That's it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I kept praying consistently and then finally he gave me like a breakthrough. And then when I decided that I'm no longer going to be gambling anymore,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I felt the closest to God. Because I felt that it was an actual promise that I could honor. Because remember when I said like when God blessed me with the idea for the business,
Yeah.
I was like, that's where my focus is. So that's God's way of showing me his love. Because he doesn't want me, he didn't make me to just be a gambling degenerate,
Mm-hmm.
Even before I thought that this is who I am, like this is my life, like I can make lots of money, I could,
Mm-hmm.
whether I lose, it's okay because the ups and downs are a part of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
So then once I decided that, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm just gonna be grinding on the business, and I still kept praying, right? And then eventually I was just like, I like who I am more now because I'm closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
But then also right when you get the blessings, that the temptation comes back again.
Yep.
So you see how the cycle, like it's a never ending process of like trying to keep yourself in check and trying to maintain a healthy relationship with God without feeling that, you're not stepping outside the boundaries, but dishonoring him.
Yeah.
And like that's the worst feeling for me. Whenever I feel the shame and guilt, I know it's not coming from myself. That's coming from God because he
Yes.
convicts you.
You and I both deal with that, like having a lot of, tons of shame and guilt. That's how you and I connected a lot, because we were like struggling with our faith and like kind of feeling like we're always never good enough, or it was never, it makes us hard. It makes it hard also to express yourself because you feel like you don't deserve love, and which makes even this kind of topic hard for people, right? Because men talking about love is weird, in like even with other men. Right? When do you ever hear like, "Hey guys, let's talk about love in our hearts and stuff"? That never happens. At a Bible study, you might hear it because guys have to, confess the things they're struggling with. And I think you made a good point, because we talk about you living in sin, or like, committing in sin but repenting, and like that's that transgression, right? Where like when you're a sinner, you just feel like, you haven't recognized God, you haven't repented, and you're just living in your sin. It makes it very hard to get out. So when you get that opportunity and you finally maybe it's your first time, you're praying to God or you're working on it, and then you see that blessing, you start to feel the weight kind of come off, right? You start to feel God's real presence with you, and to know that there's that hope and that glimmer of light, it gives you that opportunity to be like, okay, there's another way to live. There's not just this sin and all these, people, I don't like that word sin. I get it. It just means missing the mark. That's all it feels like. It's like, I'm just missing the mark. Like, everything I do, like, it's good, like I'm having results, but I still feel conflicted. Like, okay, I'm successful, I'm doing well, like I have friends and everything on the outside. If people didn't know you, they think, yo, this guy's life is great. But it's like on the inside, there's when you're made by God that he's made you in such a perfect way that when you're missing that mark, you're just confused, you're anxious, and you slowly transgress.
But I think also like the most love you'll feel from God is that feeling when you know that your time here, right? Like nothing that you accomplish here on earth will be as good as getting to see him face to face in eternity,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's like when you actually truly believe that, and like you live to that type of like live with that mentality and that standard, you feel not just a sense of peace, but you also realize, how little the problems that we face day to day matter,
Yeah.
and like that's the ultimate love. Like when I just drive and like I'll just look in the sky, right? I think of heaven when I look up, and when we've ate at restaurants, like I've told you when we're on the patio, I'm just like, yo, nobody looks up at the sky now and just like admires like how vast the universe is, like how amazing that we see animals, like just like the simplest things, right?
Yep.
Because imagine someone who's blind, who's never got to see that, or who lost their eyesight, right?
100%.
Then they take like that's like the ultimate blessing. And if you can feel that without having to, obviously go through those tragedies, like that's love in itself, because that's the closest you're gonna get to, without being in heaven exactly, but feeling that connection with God of just knowing that, I'm so grateful for everything I have right now, and I want to show my honor and show that I can do everything that you want me to do in the right way, and still like be cool with people.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
you don't have to be like that guy who's just like, now I have my relationship with God, now I'm gonna block everyone else out.
Yeah.
That's not how he wants us to live.
The closet Christian, like you're everything you do is you're trying to stay away from the world because you don't want to mess up, or you don't want to get in arguments. Like I call it closet Christian. Like they don't want to go out and actually live with people and talk with people. Jesus did that. He was with people all the time. He wasn't. That's why you always I look at Jesus and I look at his example. He wasn't trying to hide from people. Like he would go away for times and pray. Like he would flee, pray. That's what I do. But like we still have to live in the world.
And you can't be scared to make mistakes.
No.
I think like right now, because of cancel culture, like everyone's like, especially Christians, you have to like tiptoe on eggshells because people are looking, like, especially even on my Instagram, like I get comments too. I get the people who message me being like, how can you talk about this and that when you promoted this, or like I know you still like gear, and like it's not like it doesn't have to be black and white. That's a thing I hate that. other people think of Christians have to be. They think
Yeah.
that because you're a Christian, you can't like nice things. You can't be you can't swear. Like, yeah, you can't swear, but it's a process of
Yeah.
of trying to evolve. And no one wants to give people that time now to develop. Everyone they just like to point fingers and just cancel you.
And,
Or
that's the point, because we become gods in our own life. When you live in culture, you are judge and jury. So if I don't have God in my life, I'm God. I can tell you what I think is wrong and right because I live black and white. When you come to God, you know God is black and white. He says what is good and what is bad. When I read the word, I'm like, because I know now I'm gray. People in culture, they think the world is gray, and then I'm black and white. So I'm God, and I get to say, hey, you don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And that's what is great for me, because I lived black and white, because I was living in a lot of sin, a lot of transgression, and I could tell I was pointing more fingers. Right? Example you can see is at hockey. You know what I mean? Nothing's ever good enough, because I came from like, my works matter. I'm black and white, and everyone has to obey by my rules. And that's what cancel culture is, because if I'm God in my life, maybe people don't think they're God, but if they don't believe in God, they don't worship and submit to God, they become the ruler of the world, and then they just point fingers at you when you mess up. And it's like, God is the one judging me. Like, he's convicting my heart. Like, if I have a relationship with him, you don't need to, I get that too. You get constant berated, right? You don't do this. You messed up here. And it's like, there's no grace. There's no forgiveness. Like, especially when you know that God, at the end of the day, like, I'm aware when I die, I'm going to be judged. Like, you don't have to, and I do appreciate some Christians, they're, that I know they're kind when they say things. Like, so I'm not trying to be like, don't talk to me, but in this cancel culture, you can say one thing that you try to make as a joke, and you're just, no, this is what you meant. You're done. And when we make people so hateful, there's no room to grow. There's no forgiveness, like anything. Like you said, people want to talk about your past. You're not even there, right? People want to talk about your past. Like, I'm not even there, and you're trying to make me. And that's why the devil's a liar, because that's what the devil does. He goes, you can't go. You're never gonna be good. You can't have good things. You can't.
the devil wants you to feel stuck in your old ways.
Yeah, and he wants to get you in that cycle of thinking, so that you stop focusing on your relationship with God. So that's what I learned too, because I came from the sports background. Fitness and training was like, you do the job, you get the results, very black and white. And I became very critical of people, like very like, if you don't reach this standard, like, you're not good. And I'm like, then when I worked on, really giving myself to Christ and realizing how wretched I was and like all these sins I was committing, I didn't even know. I'm like, God's like, I'm gonna judge. Like, don't worry, you can live life and connect to people and talk, and stop living with like this. It just feels like, monkey on your back, and like you're always chained. Like, you can't express yourself, you can't talk. So, no, I totally understand what that's like, and I think even as Christians, we have to be kinder to each other. Like, hey, how you doing? What are you kind of going through? Let's talk about it. Not like, hey, bro, Ephesians 5:6. You can't, throwing verses at each other.
But that's why I hate the fact that churches are closed now, because that once a week, and even a lot of churches, they have daily meetings with each other. Like, you can have growth groups, and like, that's like a special moment for people who, like, let's say at in their household, they're the only believer, or like, going to church is their time away where they can actually have peace.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that's closed right now, it's caused a lot of people who were on the brink of actually becoming followers of Jesus, and like taking their faith to the next level,
Mm-hmm.
to now just be like, I don't see the need in it, or I don't see how I could grow my faith without having the proper community and the proper leaders out there, because not everyone is fortunate enough to have good friends who want to help them, or
Yep.
who are just like even care about talking about things like faith, right?
Know.
And it's like, I take it for granted, because like, I talk to you about it all the time, but it's like, I know there's so many people, especially at the church that we went to, that they cherish the like that 45 minutes or that hour there, because that's all they have, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah, you can, and it's not the same where people say you can just go on YouTube and watch a service. It's not the same. Like,
No,
when you're in person,
real.
yeah, like, not everything can be digitalized,
Yep.
and you can't get the same emotions. Like, when I'm watching Life Church, yeah, I like watching it, but I still prefer in person, being at church. You
Yep.
feel the energy. It's a different vibe, right?
Yeah, they're in your community. They're real people. You can go get a coffee with them afterwards. You can hear the worship music. Like, you're there, right? And because of cancel culture, that's the last place you can go, and people can talk about their problems, and no one's going to try to, burn them at the stake and you're this. Everyone goes to church because they know they have issues. They know that I'm struggling with something, like whatever it was, past marriage or past betrayal, used to be an abuser, used to go to prison, whatever. Everyone's there recognizing that I do need God and I'm not perfect and I also want to do better. And like we say, when God is love, we want to start loving people. And I believe that culture doesn't know love. And I try to make people understand that if we don't know who created us and the foundation of this world, we are not going to be able to be sufficient in the relationships we have with people.
And on that topic, look at the friends that we brought with us to church, right?
Mm-hmm.
How impactful it was for them. Like we saw the difference right away that it made, not just from like them going to church that one those couple times, but from seeing us with them, and then we worked on building a new relationship with that person, where it's like they feel that they can talk to us now about anything.
Exactly.
And like that, like the church was just like another level for them to like get to know God, and for them to see and then actually to get them to feel the same energy that we feel by going there. Because I think that a lot of like the people that that are in our circle, they look at church as something that was traditional back then, so they don't know like, oh, the church that Alex and Aaron go to, it's actually just like, it's upbeat. It's like our pastor is, very personable.
Yeah.
It's not like a guy up there in a robe, just like reading Bible verses all day.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people, especially the young adults, they don't know that church has evolved. Right? There's different types of churches. Everyone just thinks that, back in Catholic school when the priest came out, it's time to sleep.
Snooze fest, bro. I would love sleeping during those church sermons. I learned nothing. I learned that's the thing, right? People have a bad taste of religion, right? That what it is, and it's just not that. And like that's why even we cared so much about doing this podcast, because we knew we had, we're grateful to have relationships with guys who are doing the same things and lifestyles that can talk about those things, because we know so many hockey players, guys in different cultures, that they don't feel they can express themselves because, one, it seems as weak. Culture will call it weak. They'll call it pathetic. And guys and a lot of men in our world are unable to express their emotions, right? It's very like, just leave it for, another time, another day. And when for me, that having the opportunity to play hockey but not fall back into old habits, because we're holding each other accountable too, right? We want to go to church Sunday, talk about things, we talk about culture and other topics, and look at this. Like, it's also part of like a growth mindset, a growth mentality, because we never know when our time is up. Like, we never know. Prayers to Tiger Woods, because like you never know when you're just driving one day and then all of a sudden you're in an accident, your legs are just smashed. Like, you don't know what's gonna, what your journey's gonna be in life, right, with God. And very grateful to, even when I think about coming to these episodes too, it's like I get to come to a place and talk about Jesus, talk about Christ, talk about my issues, and like it's not like it's going to be canceled. It's going to be like, oh, no, don't go there. You know what I'm saying? Don't talk there. And
or you have to fake a new persona.
Yeah.
Right? Be someone you're not.
Yeah.
And, not everyone gets to do that. Like there's a lot of different circumstances that people are in. And, like I think that the people we really want to connect with are the in-betweeners as well. Yeah. Because the ones that are in between, who, like we said in the beginning, that don't feel the love from God or don't feel any connection, where they say, yeah, like I believe in God, but I don't feel that I know him, or I don't feel that he can help me, or he has helped me. And like, that's the toughest thing, because we never know when our time is going to come from how much we serve God. Like, we like to think that, if I put in this much time with God, by this date, he's going to bless me with like what I've been asking him for, and we know like never happens that way.
No.
So it's like, those are the people that we want to continue to make them feel that, like, just don't give up now because you haven't seen the blessings or like the things that you feel you deserve. And that's a sense of entitlement.
Yep. 100%. That's a battle, because that's why for me, I always try to, when I started reading the word, it started convicting me so much, and it actually took weight off me and put it onto God. Like, me in my life was always about me. Like, I had to, do all these different things or I'm a failure. And then like you said, you start judging other people because you're judging yourself so hard. Me giving my relationship and giving my life to Christ, it took off that weight of trying to, like you said, have a persona. identity crisis ton of stuff. You know, you identify with something. You find a sin. I call it a sin. You find a sin you're good at or that makes sense or people say they like about you, and you connect to that. And then you start to feel like you have to keep that going for so long, and you don't like yourself. You can't really like live with yourself, really. People like you, you know, but, you know, people liked me, but I didn't like myself.
I think we always have to remind ourselves too that the relationship with God can never be transactional.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do something for God and expect, like, you can't be doing it for the wrong reasons. You know,
Mhm.
like I think a lot, especially today, there's so many times where, you know, like we feel not pressure but obligated to act a certain way because we're followers of Jesus and like we want to do right in God's eyes,
Mhm.
but like the true intention is not always there. You know,
Yep.
like I'm guilty of that myself where,
Yep.
you know, like and like I'm being honest there because I think it's impossible to always feel 100% like connected and
fully,
like I'm
holy.
doing this for the right reason every
Yeah,
time. Like,
yeah.
you know, like it's an impossible standard to
Yep.
live like,
Yes,
right?
it is. Yep.
Because like if you're always just doing that to please others and your true intent's never there, you're gonna get tired. It's gonna get boring real fast, right?
Mhm.
So that's why prayer is so important because you always have to be humble, humble enough to ask God and just to know that like God knows my real heart, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you have to do that thing for God, right? Because like we don't always like to do things that we don't see the benefit right away
Immediate
from.
reaction. Yeah.
But it's like this is what God would want me to do in this situation. So you know, I have to humble myself and do it.
Amen. And that's a
And
good
that's with
point.
apologies too, and then that's with like just holding each other accountable because there's so many times where like we feel that if I'm not even in the wrong, why am I apologizing for? But it's like you just know that
And it
God
go-
would want you to do this.
and again, it goes to that point again where it's like you're judge and jury because like I'm not wrong, right? People like to be right. Like I like to be right. That's my issue. I'm self-righteous.
Me too.
I could be very proud and arrogant, but that's why you and I also connected because we saw the similarities, but then we also wanted to work on it, right? You see in sports and stuff like that, wanting a certain goal to get done, business, whatever. I have to realize like, wait, if I'm self-righteous, then God's not righteous. So that I'm, you know what I mean? Who's right? And it's like, if I'm gonna humble myself to the Lord and like, you know, I say when I die one day, go to heaven. It's like, oh, you're judge and jury.
And
Ye-
and when Jesus died on the cross, you know, he didn't want to prove people that he was right. He could have proved himself that he was right, that I shouldn't be
Exactly.
dying on the cross.
Yeah.
But he was following what God told him needed to be done.
Amen.
And Jesus was humble enough to be like, you guys, what you're doing now, persecuting me, is wrong in every way, but I'm gonna allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like that's why it's the most remarkable story because who would do that today, knowing that, you know, I'm in the right here, but I'm still gonna let you guys take me on the cross.
Amen, man. And that's why I love that verse when for God so loved the world, he gave his only son. He did it. He decided. It wasn't culture and at the time these people, you're not living right, you're against the law and trying to, you know, kill them tons of times. It was God doing justice. And that's when you say, you know, you talk about transactional, like relationships are all transactional. People think God's one being. It's like, no, it's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So they're in relation with each other. Like there has always been a relationship with God. God has never been by himself being like, I'm going to create the world now. He's always been in relation. That's why when we start to realize, well, I can have a personal relationship with Jesus, with God, and then you'll start to, once you're working on it, you know, you start to feel it. You're like, holy crap. You're like, that's the presence. And when you realize you can have that, you feel the forgiveness, you can start to feel the healing inside because we've done so much. You know, when you're born in sin and you have so much damage and you've lied so many times, your soul is hurting. You know, that's why everyone goes to all these different practices, right? Self-love, new age, gym, sports, like, oh, I'll build up me. We're so damaged, and when we receive that actual relationship with God and we know it's healing, we go, yo, I want someone else to feel that way. It's like that's why Christians, ones who really believe, they want to start something. They want to like talk to people. They want to reach out because
They want to share the same energy that they received.
Exactly.
Like the closest I feel to God is when I turn away from sin the longest. We talked about that with each other. Like when you honor God and like, you know, you're turning away from like your strongholds, right? It's like that's when you feel the most spiritually clear. That's when you can actually, you know, work in his presence. And it's like it just translates everywhere. Like, you know, business wise, relationships, you know, mentally, spiritually, like everything improves. I find for myself when I turn away from sin. You know, when I'm actually like being mindful of all my actions. You know, and just like putting God first. in
Yep.
like and from the beginning of my day,
Yep.
of just like, today's day is gonna come, and it's gonna, whatever happens, right? I'm gonna do it with the intention of literally, what would Jesus do here? And if
Yeah.
I do slip up, I'm not gonna judge myself. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna acknowledge it and then keep going forward.
And that's why people need to know Jesus, because if once you know Jesus, you don't have to do that to yourself, because he paid the price. Like, he literally humbled himself, like you said. He could have done anything he wanted. He could be like, nah, okay, boom. Like, but he's like, I'm gonna do the thing that you don't know. It's called love. It's called unconditional love. Like, sacrificing yourself, and for never doing anything wrong. Like, he was just helping people, doing miracles, helping the sick, and then people just didn't like it, right? Because they wanted their power. Because the Jews at the time, they had a lot of power. And if he was doing these miracles, they'll start to lose their power, because the followers of their religion will start to go to the real true God.
And the other kings didn't like that so many people were worshiping Jesus. They didn't like that they were all seeing the miracles and thinking that this is the real Messiah, this is the real king. It took away power from them.
Yep.
And that still happens today.
Yep.
When we see certain leaders who are actually being leaders, right? Other people start hating on them and want to take them down because they don't like the love that, this
Yep.
person's receiving for doing good.
Straight up. And that's
the problem.
Yes, and that's why we see, when people today, still happening, people are going to these Catholic churches, whatever, and it's all about, like, kind of like, you want a transactional, pay your way to heaven, make sure the church is going well, and like, Jesus came to really abolish that. Like, it's you and Jesus in your room, like, you pray, like, just get to know him by yourself. You don't have to listen to anybody. You're created by God, which means you have an access to God. You don't have to, oh, I have to know this guy, or I have to get this, I have to know this many scriptures, or I have to, right? We have to get out of that framework that I've had to.
Christian scorecard.
Yeah, right. Like, God's like, hey, you did that today. I don't think that's going to be good for me. Like, you can't do that, right? Because the devil, I believe in the devil. I believe in Satan. I knew, because of what I was feeling like when I lived in the culture, that I was doing evil. And when you come to that fruition, because people think, well, why does God send people to hell then? Like, if he's so loving, why does he send people to hell? It's like, we're already going to hell. Like, this is a fallen world. We're already on the way. And yet Jesus came to give us an opportunity. And we see that today. Like, you want to, like, you really look at the world. How much real good and honest love is there in today's time? And like, and I'm talking about not just like your service level, your basic, but like, how many, how much, like, unconditional, real, when you feel that relationship with God, that power, how often do you really feel that with
Very
other
rare.
people?
Because people let you down. That's and like, I'm not saying that I've never let people down too. Like, I'm human.
Yeah.
So we all have let someone else down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's what happens when you value other people, or you value other celebrities as your God, right? It's very short-lived, because we're all flawed. It doesn't matter how much money or how much power you have. How many scandals have we seen? There were people, they go down,
So
right?
many.
Or they die. And
Yep.
then you find out stuff about them after, and it's like you end up hating that person.
Yep.
Right? But it's like,
Yep.
how can, if you actually like read the scriptures and actually have a relationship with God, it's like, how can you hate someone that didn't do it? And like, nothing Jesus did was wrong. The guy lived a sinless life and was still persecuted for it.
Yep.
So imagine if he lived today, how many haters he would have.
Yes.
Like, it would be insane. Like, everyone would be trying to defame him, cancel him.
Yep.
Right? It's
Find
like,
where he lives.
say he's spreading COVID. It's like,
Yeah.
he's not 6 feet away from people. That's the
Yeah.
craziest thing right now, right? How it's like,
Yeah.
showing love to other people now, it's like, it's a crime. You have to be 6 feet away. You got to have a mask. And it's like, if you don't agree with mainstream media about that, you're seen as insensitive. Right?
Yes.
You're like, no, this person doesn't care about my health or my safety.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, I'm trying to show more love than you are
Yes.
behind the counter with eight shields of glass.
Yes.
Like what Frank said, right?
Yeah, and like, your friend's doing a business, you're trying to support him. He's a barber, and you have to, like, feel like you're going and committing a crime to get a haircut,
It's crazy, man.
right? And that's the plan. That's why I always try to. I try. Listeners probably know. Maybe some listeners, like you said, are in between. Like, there's so many things that are close to God we think are true, right? Like, they say, yeah, we're trying to help people include, and we want to, all these movements of inclusivity, but it excludes us at the end of the day, because, like you said, when you're trying to really live a life of God, you will not be liked by everybody. Like, most people won't like you because you have a certain level standard you're trying to live by, and being around people that don't have that, you can feel it drains you. You start to feel like, I don't want to engage in that, but they're my friends, so like, it is a difficult road, a difficult path. I'm grateful that, I know once a week we're coming to do this podcast. So that's always in my back of my mind, being like, oh, I got to prepare. Like, I can't be living this certain way and then trying to come here and, right? Because I know I'll be even more convicted, right? God
You won't want to do it.
No, and God won't allow me to speak true and speak righteously, through the Holy Spirit, not because of my own doing, but because God works through me. It'll be very difficult. So that's why I'm also very grateful. I think it's only been like 6-7 months, but like coming here, it's slowly you see, and people are, I think in the beginning of anything, when you're trying to step outside and challenge things, people first, question it, but if they see consistency, that's how we get people to in between, that are.
But it's good. It's good too if people want to challenge it.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, it's like everything should be challenged.
Yep.
Right. I don't want anyone to just believe in God, because, like I said before, just because they see me doing it or they see you doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no intent there. It's not that you're not gonna feel that you're not gonna want to even be consistent in like having a relationship based on someone else you see doing something in anything. Like if you ever try to get into starting a business because you see someone else doing it, right? And your love is not there, the passion's not there, you're not going to be successful.
It's done.
It's the same thing as like for everything. And this is even harder now because as a Christian, there's so many roadblocks, and it's like our world is not set up in the way that, Jesus would want it.
I know.
So like everything's a contradiction, right? It's like, wait till things open up again when guys are going to be like, yo, let's go out to a club, let's go to a strip club, let's go travel, let's go do this and that. And then the temptations all come back again. It's like right now, it's like, it's a perfect time to find out what really matters. And like, for me, it's like, my relationship with God has improved a lot during this lockdown because it gave me the spiritual clarity. We have the podcast. It gave me something to actually, I'd say apply what I've learned and apply what I want other people to know about God. Right. And it's like, I think that as soon as things start opening up again, right, it's either going to go two ways in terms of society, how they view, Christians and like how the church operates and stuff. It's either they're going to condemn them by saying that, there's too many people in the church, like we need socially distance, right? And it's going to cause a rift, right? Or the church is going to stand up and be like, yo, it's enough is enough now. We're going to be operating how we want to operate.
Amen.
Like, what do you can you see that happening?
I see it around provinces in Canada that there's churches, pastors have been arrested because they said no more. They opened it up and they got arrested, went to prison for just having church services, people who had need a place to not want to, live a bad life, people they can actually talk to. Like everyone, it's so crazy. I saw a thing where it's like we want to isolate the virus, but really all they're doing is isolating people, right? The virus is going to spread, doesn't matter. But that's what their goal was, to isolate and disconnect people. And, that's why I think about the lockdown. I think about, this podcast, and we have to keep going because there's not voices that are spreading the truth, and they're just kind of, oh, come on, do this, it's for that. Like, I just want to go back to my life, it's just let me live my life. And it's just, there's so much more to life than just your pleasures and what you enjoy. And
where's your life after life?
That's exactly.
No one talks about that. Yeah. Everyone just talks about get it while you're here.
Get it while you're here.
Life is short. You gotta get everything you can now. Yeah. No one's talking about what happens when you pass.
Yeah, and that's why it's. I know that too. Like right now, lockdown, it's like you have more time to spend with God, and it's like a wave. When things open up, like all of a sudden the world gets going. And like I said, when I started playing hockey again, I'm like, whoa! Like I can now catch myself because I haven't been playing for such a long time. I was like, whoa! I never knew that was coming into my mind after sports, like being hard and then getting angry. It takes me away from God because it's like it's all about me. And I'm like, oh, I would never even recognize that before if never lockdowns, right? So I do take that blessing away from that. But I know when things start opening up, everything starts going again, you can get lost. You get lost in culture, and it starts to disconnect from God. And that's why, we do need churches opened. I think if they lift the lockdowns and there's no more, I think there will be maybe an increase in people coming to Jesus, coming to Christ with things opening up, allowing to go to church, But I think if they start to bring more lockdowns, like in March, February, we're going to have to start speaking up louder. Like there's probably going to be more pastors arrested because they're trying to get rid of, like, I do know this to my heart, they're trying to get rid of God in our culture. They're trying to get rid of that there's not one God, even though our laws are based on that. Like, they're literally based on the Ten Commandments, Judeo-Christianity. Like, it's actually, they're just trying to slowly get rid of it so people can just live how they want to live. Everyone just do what you want to do. And it's going to cause, we know it's going to cause a lot more harm.
They want your government, they want your God to be the government.
Yeah.
That's what they ultimately want.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these, like we see now, especially during COVID, a lot of these politicians, they love the attention so much. It's not even about like, like working for the people or like trying to, actually get the economy reopen and get back to normal. It's more about like the time they get on CP24 is like their time to shine because everyone knows you now. Like the same people that are speaking every day, they've never been relevant like this in their life.
Yep.
So now this is their one time where it's like they feel so much power that they feel like a god themselves.
Yes.
So it's like if they can, if we have the power to shut down businesses, tell people you can't go out, it makes them feel like, that everyone is at our disposal,
100%.
And it's crazy because like these are the same people that, right, if there was no COVID going on, we wouldn't even know about them.
They wouldn't even know even like, what's his name? Doug Ford or Rob Ford? I keep getting confused. Is it Rob Ford?
Doug
Ford. So he makes a ton of money because of these lockdowns. Like his business is in shipping and packing. So he owns that stuff. So his business is 10x because now everyone has to ship stuff. And he owns the flooring of, like, when you see all the floors at stores 6 feet distance stuff, he owns that stuff. So he actually benefits from the lockdowns financially. So it's like, oh, no way. What are the chances of that guy, he makes money from these lockdowns? And you're right, because people don't have God in their life, like when you get to certain levels of power, you start to crave it. It starts to get that energy. That's to me, it's Satan. To me, it's like you start to feel like, yeah, like I can tell people what to do. They can't stop me. I have all this power, attention, and when you don't have to humble yourself because, I don't care. You guys not believe in heaven and hell. I in my whole heart, I pray you find that because hell is eternity, and you might have some riches for the next 5-10 years. Who knows what happens? But that's forever.
And you know why too? Like you said, you brought up you don't care if they believe in heaven or hell. The crazy part is that a lot of people right now, they're living in hell. Yes. And some know it, some don't. Like there's some, like how I felt when I was gambling, right? I felt that I was in hell. I was like, yo, there's no way out of this. Yeah. Like I'm just addicted. Like I can't go a day without doing it. Yeah. About feeling like a piece of shit, right? Yeah. And like that was hell to me. And imagine if I didn't believe in heaven or hell, I would think like this is just the end, right? But the fact that I did have that belief in God still, that little sliver of hope, where it's like I bounced out of it. Now it's like I can see like clearly that hell's even worse than that. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and you got to be spiritually clear to see that, because at that point I wouldn't think there's anything worse. No. I was already thinking like, yo, this is it. Like I'm just a gambling degenerate for the rest of my life, Yeah. And it's like there's so many that can be applied to anything. Like drug addicts for sure feel the same way. People who abuse alcohol, it's like I know the pain they're feeling in a different way, like because gambling is a thing that's bottomless, right? It's not like when you can drink and then you can pass out, or you can do drugs and like you can OD and you could be gone. But gambling just feels you get lower and lower, because it's like it's one of those addictions where it's money, that's the drug, and it's the dopamine rush is a different type than a drug addict, right? Okay. So it's like you just feel that you're like sinking, and it's like you need the next bet to give you the high again. Yeah. Right. And
there's nothing that's gonna take you out. Like,
yeah. So it doesn't.
So it's a choice. You're just like
it's endless. It's literally endless. Yeah. It's not like I had a friend before who like he used to be like a heavy drug user, right? And he would explain that after he does drugs and stuff, like he just loves the feeling of just passing out, because then he could sleep. Yeah. For gambling, every game you do, you're fired up for the next one. There is no sleep,
because if you lose, you're like, I gotta get back. You're like, ah.
And when you win, it's like, I'm like, okay, we'll put that money toward the next one.
Yeah, you're thinking of the next plan, next step.
It never ends. Yeah, so that's a scary thing.
And that's
right?
why you can see these politicians who are getting all this power and money. It never ends for them, right?
And the crazy thing about the politicians is, so if they were to announce that everything reopened, lockdowns are done, right? do you think we'll ever give them the time of the day or like care what their opinions are towards anything? It's
Never.
like CP24, you guys aren't going to be on TV anymore. Your fame is done.
Yeah.
But the fact that they can say, no, it's extended for another 2 weeks, that's another 2 weeks of them to get their shine on.
Yes.
And it's so stupid because, like even the head, the health minister or whatever her name is, right? Who keeps saying that, we're in a false sense of security right now because the numbers are going down, but with the new variant, we don't know if it's gonna take us overboard again, right? That girl, first of all, she's from the States. People don't even know she's American.
She's American.
She's American.
Did she just come here for
she has
COVID news?
Dual citizenship,
Oh,
right?
okay.
But it's like she grew up in the States, right? And like the fact that we're trusting someone who, how can you have our best interest as a Canadian, right? When
you don't live as a Canadian.
Yeah, and not just that too, but it's like all of your data, right? It's not even concrete. So like all the facts that you're giving us about like where the virus is coming from is that it's not even actual like hardcore data because we know that it's not coming from gyms that you're closing, restaurants that you're closing, all these things that you're closing. So like how can I even trust you? That you have our best interest.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. And it's like a lot of it's projected data, like what it projects to be down the road. Like none of it's actually facts. And that's why for me, like, people have a hard time. It's like, what is true anymore? Like, how can I decide that, that's true, that's false? It's like when you build a relationship with God, he will give you the discernment to know like this person's lying. Why? Because I used to be a liar and I know what it looks like, right? Like, when you live a different life, you can start to discern like just because someone gives you facts and like, oh, here's the information. It's like, nah, I know the fruits of that. Like, I know where you come from. You don't come from Christ. You don't come from the place I'm coming from. I know I have to be discerned. And I think one thing for people, if you're in lockdowns right now, the best thing that happened to me is I just stopped watching the news and I stopped hearing what they talk about the cases because, like, the biggest thing they're trying to do is they want you to go on the TV. Like, they want to indoctrinate you. They want to keep telling you to live in fear, right? Like, fear God. Stop fearing the government. Like, stop fearing what this world's trying to tell you to do because, oh, you're going to die. You're going to die. You got to ask yourself, why are they so focused on you not wanting to die? Like, why is that their motivation, right? You got to ask yourself those questions. I ask myself those questions. Like, wait, if I die, I go to heaven. So why are you so afraid? You have to see where these people are coming from, what they believe in. Because a lot of times we want to promote things and talk about facts based on our belief system.
Yeah.
Right? Based on where we come from. Not because, oh, here's the evidence of these things because of this. It's like, no, I provide this evidence because of Christ, right? I'm never going to try to lead someone a certain path based on my own selfish desires because we know where that leads up, right? And these guys are craving it.
But I think there's too many people also. There's a lot of people that fear death because they don't know what's going to happen and they don't have any belief system in like what happens after death.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when they hear about things like COVID or they hear about, things that can affect them mentally, they it's not like they panic, but they like to deflect their true emotions towards what they actually feel because they're scared of being judged by others, right?
Yep.
So it's like I know there's people that let's say they don't fear death, right? But because so many people around them are scared of the virus, they don't want to make it seem that they're insensitive to those people. So they'll be like, yeah, like I'm scared of it too, like I think we should wear masks, even though they can not really feel that way. But they don't want to be that person that, is standing up for it or is like, saying enough is enough, right?
Yeah,
and like there's not enough people like that because think of it, for every 5 people that walk into a store that are scared shitless with a mask on, right? Mm-hmm. How many of those 5 people do you think are actually really scared? I'm seeing less. Like I'm seeing some people when I go into a store now or I go into a convenience, right? Some of them, they don't even put the mask on.
Yes. I think there's less people who are actually scared, and most people are, because we live in Canada too, we're people pleasers. Like I grew up being a people pleaser. I want to be liked. I didn't want to like have people judge me. I know what that's like. I think the majority, the news is saying this. I want to follow the news. I want to just be like, yeah, I'm good wearing the mask, go 6 feet and stuff. I think people, we're changing our lives for the very few who actually are, screaming about masks and they're living in fear. I think there are a lot more people who do see that this is lunacy, but like you said, they don't have the courage because they don't have a relationship with God, so they have nothing to rely on, right? So if they're thinking it's all me, like I don't want to speak out, I don't want to say something. I watched something, the Disney Star Plus actor Gina Carano, she got canceled for her conservative views. and she remembers, like, you know, she's always speaking out. And she was an MMA fighter. Yeah, she's loving, but she's tough. Like, she has her standards, and she was saying that people were like whispering to her, "I agree with you." And just and like she was like, I was at the person's house, and she's like, "Why are you whispering?"
Yes, speak up.
Because people are living in the fear. They fear, like, they're gonna judge me, they're gonna smite me. It's like, so the more we have, I believe, the more we have people speaking out like us on the podcast, people will start to have like, yo, I believe, like, these guys are doing it. Like, we start to, like, you know, help each other and support each other. People will start speaking out to these people who are, like you said, they live in the now. They're so afraid. They're so controlling and manipulative. They want people to appease everything they do. Right? I have to change my life because you're afraid of something that I'm not afraid of. And because we're in today's time, I get canceled and you get canceled, whatever. You know, us Christians, we can see we get canceled for our views. And we have to start realizing, you know, it comes to a point where you only have this time to speak, right? One day they will just turn off everything. You don't have access to Instagram, have access to this. You can't go here, you can't go there. And, like, who can you talk to? Like, imagine you're stuck at home.
I know. And you know, there's a quote too that goes, don't support me. I mean, don't tell me like congrats, or don't try to big me up to me. Do it in the public so people know that you're actually like showing me love. Because there's too many people that will just show you love, you know, behind closed doors or to you personally, but out in the public, right, or on your page, they won't show love because, you know, like, they don't actually support you. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people like that they'll text you or they'll send you a DM being like, yo, like, I mess with this or whatever, like, but they'll never hit like on your picture. They'll never comment, you know, something that they actually agree with. So it's like, because they're scared, like, they're scared for other people to see them in public supporting your view or supporting your brand or supporting what you're doing, you know?
Yes.
And those are the same people that, you know, like, you got to be able to see through that, because at the end of the day, it's like, what, like, that support, that's all fake love. So the person who's telling you, like, yo, good job privately, he's not going to have your back in public. And that's the same thing that you brought up of that girl whispering to her, being like, I agree with you. Like, bro, don't even tell me that if you won't do it in public.
Exactly. Go out in public. And
same thing with the Don Cherry, Ron McLean, right? Like how Ron McLean, he just didn't support him in public. He supported him in private, being like, he's like, yeah, I talked to Don, and, like, you know, I told him this and that. But what good does that do, right?
Yeah, it's very true. You know, I pray for you guys listening too, to build that courage to, like, you know, you get to the point where you speak your thoughts, you share your mind. And if you do agree with somebody, like, it doesn't do it justice if you disagree with them and you hide. Like, you need more people speaking about it. We literally see how information is translated through communication, through speech. We're in this lockdown because people are telling us we're in lockdown, right? And it goes against the Charter of Rights. And we have to, like, even with the flights and everything, like, you going in quarantine hotels.
Did
like,
you see that?
All this nonsense, man. Like wake up. Like,
did you see how much they're charging though?
Was it 2,000 or something for?
So basically, they say that once you arrive in Canada, you have a 3-day mandatory hotel stay, right? Because you have to wait your results of your COVID test, right? But if your results come faster within those 3 days, you still get charged the full amount of the 3 days. Even like, let's say you only spent 1 or 2 days in there, they still charge you the full amount of 3 days, right? So people are like, yo, that's the biggest joke, because you're charging me for an extra night if for no reason, because I'm ready to leave after the second day. And on top of that, all these people are already tested before they leave the place that they're coming from, so they're already like showing negative tests,
they're
right?
good, and they're like, nope, go
so
here.
Yeah, so what's the point of even showing that first negative test if after when you land you gotta wait for the your new test? That's why it's like, yo, these people just gotta be ready to take the fine, because they're not gonna hold up in court anyways.
Exactly.
So it's like you take the fine for 800 ever, but you're not
gonna guilty.
Pursue it.
Yeah, you're not guilty yet. People
you don't have to stay in the hotel and quarantine.
I think some people have left. They just straight up just like, nah, get out of here. Give me the fine. You can't.
You and I would do that.
100%.
I'm not. There's no chance I'm staying in there.
Don't live in the fear of the government, man. They'll give you. They'll push you. They'll make you. They'll bully you. That's what it is. It's manipulation. It's bullying. They'll make you afraid. Oh, I'm getting this ticket. Oh, 2,000. Okay, I'm just gonna stay here. Like that. That gets worse. The more we accept people and the government doing these things, and the more people don't stand up, it just transgresses.
And the hotels love it too right now, because the hotels, this is their time to make money.
Yep.
So it makes you think that the government forcing people like against their will too, to stay in quarantine and getting charged these crazy hotel prices
Yep.
when a lot of them live by themselves anyways. So what's the difference if they were to go home and quarantine versus at a hotel paying like, $500 a night?
Yep.
So it makes you think too, like how much the government is in with it with the hotels, because the hotels themselves said that even if you don't stay the full 3 nights, if you stay for 1 night or 2 nights, it's non-refundable. We're keeping the money because they call it the government package. So like, because they interviewed a guy on CB24 and he's just like, they're like, why didn't you get your refund? And he's like, they told me it's part of the government package and he showed the receipt and everything, and he was paying an extra 500 for a night he didn't even use. He didn't even need to use because he got his test after 2 days, but his mandatory 3 days in there.
This sounds crazy to me. This sounds like a bit major gaslight. Like it's like they're making you feel bad, then they're saying you have to stay here, and then they take your money. Like you guys need, like that's literally what's happening. And people are like, oh, like yeah, you gotta keep safe. The virus is spreading. You want to make sure they're traveling. The variant. It's like you need to wake up here. Like people can call it hotels, and one day it's gonna be a concentration camp. Like people get scared.
Yeah.
No, people get scared and they say, don't say that. I'm like, yo, concentration camps don't just come. Hey guys, concentration camps open. It's like it's slowly you accept it. First it's hotels. And then the hotels, they run out of space. You build facilities. And then guess what? They make money because you're paying for them to build it. You have to pay for the hotels. You're paying to fund your own concentration camp. How amazing is that? They've made you your own prisoner, and you don't even realize it. And
they said today, they saw the thing on Six Buzz where they weren't getting food and water. So all the people in the hotels were like, what's going on? You guys are supposed to be providing this. Like, we haven't had a meal all day.
oh my gosh.
And it's like, it's literally what you said, a concentration camp. And it's like, once you land too, because they showed a lady who she showed 4 negative tests before she even got on the flight.
Four negatives.
She had 4 because she had to. So one from work. It was like another one in the airport. Like
Wow.
there was 4 tests that she did, and then the border guard was just like, let me see the documents. He looked at him. He's like, you still have to do the other test because it's mandatory. It's like, bro, if someone showed me 4 negative tests too, it just came off the plane. It's like, bro, that's enough.
Yeah.
What's 5?
Yep.
Right? And then that's a whole other argument about how accurate these tests even are.
Yeah.
But it goes to show you too that a lot of these hotels, they don't give a fuck because they're scumbags too for getting in on it because they're
Yep.
happy, like they're getting paid.
Yep.
And even though they know that what we're doing is not right, they don't care. They're gonna stand.
And guess who owns the hotels? Guess what country?
Wait, who?
China.
Depends probably which one. There's a lot of hotels.
There are lots, but like
Yeah.
I was watching Rebel News.
You can't just say one. They own all the hotels.
No, I'm saying there's some. The ones I watched on Rebel News, they're talking about the guys on Rebel News.
Yeah.
Because they're there, right? They're like kind of part of the riot, not riot, protesting, whatever. And they're
Yeah.
saying a lot of these hotels are owned by China,
Yeah.
and it's just like I want people to start connecting the dots. Like nothing is random, nothing is a coincidence, and communism is a real thing. It happens. People flee those countries for a reason, and then do the research. How many communism countries are successful or like have freedom? None. So if you got to look at who's making the money, where it's getting transferred, just to be cautious because one day you're not you can't leave your house. Like you'll have police officers showing up to your house. Hey, you left. You're going to jail. Here's a $10,000 fine for leaving your house for COVID. Whatever. But people just need to wake up. I think it's been good today. Good episode.
Yeah, we touched on a lot today.
A lot today. I wanted to read. Go to the verse of the day. Talks about the attributes of God. God is love. This is 1 John 4. I pray for you guys during this time you going through anything. I appreciate you guys who listen weekly. Maybe this, I know some of you, this is a podcast you are excited to listen to every week, so I appreciate that. It means a lot, and we appreciate your messages. So this is here, 1 John 4, God is love. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. And that's good for today. God is love. Talk to you guys soon.
Amen.